Hello, my name is Sam Feltham and welcome to Expert Interviews here on Smash the Fat. With me today is revolutionary biomechanist Katy Bowman
Woo!
MS. How you doing, Katy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. And you're coming all the way from West Coast of America. Whereabouts was it in?
I actually live in Washington State, so
So kind of Seattle, kind of.
Seattle, right? Seattle, right?
Yeah, that's right. Perfect, perfect. And the reason that I kind of wanted to get you on the show today is because you've written this fantastic book called Move Your DNA. I was kind of first introduced to this kind of about a month ago by a guy called Larry Diamond, who I believe you may have met or he saw you speak at Primal Con maybe. And he said, you've got to get her on the show. She's an absolutely brilliant presenter, and she's written a fantastic book as well. So went online, Googled Move Your DNA. The video that we put up on the blog there came up straight away. Watched that. Thought absolutely fantastic. Downloaded the audio book, so it's quite strange listening to you now because it feels like you're the audio book, Katy. And then listened to it. I've also flicked through the Kindle version, and it's absolutely fantastic, Katy. So firstly, congratulations on that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No worries, no worries. And before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of how to move your DNA and what exactly nutritious movement is, that might be kind of a new idea for people. Let's just talk about a bit of your background, how you came to where you are today, and why exactly is it that you want to help people?
Well, I'm a biomechanist, and for those people who don't know what biomechanics is, it's like the physics of biology, and I personally am most interested always in how things work. I like the little machines that drive the bigger machines, if you will. And originally I started working just in general exercise, and with biomechanics there's a lot of general breakdowns of movements for athletes and designing physical therapy programs. But then I went back to graduate school because I was really interested in really the smaller, the cells, how it works on the tissue and the cellular level. And so I went back and did more education because I thought, well, it doesn't seem right that all these people are having these little breakdowns in these very specific ways. And mechanically speaking, I could see similarities in populations that had particular outcomes when you put them through a mechanical filter, specifically how they moved. And so since I had more of an intuition of that first, it was a natural drive for me to go find out the underlying science of how it worked. And I found, though, that once I found that a lot of people didn't know this basic how things work. Everyone knows kind of that you should move, unless you've been living under a very large rock. You know that movement is something, just like food, that you need. But it became clear to me in more and more research that there's actually real specific types of movements and motions and loads that the human body requires, in the same way that there's real specific types of foods and nutrients that they need. And so just maybe in the last 10 years I've been helping convert a more robust understanding of the science into general. I mean, you read Move Your DNA. It's not overly technical, but at the same time it's introducing some difficult concepts. And so that's what I do. I think I've kind of become this science educator with things having to do with the body and how movement and human geometry are all interconnected, but in a casual kind of way, because I'm from the West Coast and we do casual here pretty well. So that's kind of my story and how I got to where I am now.
Fantastic. And why is it that you do want to help people?
You know what? I think that I've worked for a long time in pain and injury and disease. And when you see enough of that population, the common thread tends to be confusion. Specifically when people are kind of generally or intuitively understanding that they could maybe move or eat better, and they're seeking resources like that you've provided and books that are out there available. that generally speaking, this population tends to already be, quote, doing things right. They've already been following the government guidelines. They've already been following the magazine headlines. And I think I felt compelled to help, not so much help people with their pain, although it's definitely a byproduct, was to help them with their confusion, was to help them recognize that sometimes when things are made simple so that everyone can read them in a magazine, or that when a government can produce a set of guidelines for people to follow, that a lot of times when you simplify, you lose a lot of the essence of the argument, and slowly over time things become slightly incorrect. And so I think I was just interested more in getting rid of the confusion, because it's very hard to fix yourself or improve your health when you're confused over these basic things, when there's these big arguments over what should be the most foundational tenets of a science. And so I think I just felt compelled to go, let me help clear your mind so that it can become clear to you what you need to do. And I'm a science educator. I'm a science-minded person. I love science. And so I found that just by giving people a little bit of education, that they are now able to understand and integrate this information that might have been overwhelming before.
Absolutely. That's a very, very worthy cause, and something that kind of all of us health and fitness professionals kind of come across every day, and trying to sort of clear the confusion is a big part of what we do. Now, moving back to Move Your DNA, as you can see here, lovely, lovely. Is that you, Katy? On the
It is not me. No, it is not.
No, just a nice little fire there. I don't know. Is that the Rockies, or I'm not sure.
I don't know, but it was pleasing to me. But the bottom, I just like to tell everyone, that bottom design is actually bone cells. Those are bone cells. It's not an arbitrary kind of funky design. Those are actual osteocytes. And I'm a bone geek a little bit, so I threw a little bit of homage to my geekiness on the cover of my book.
I see, because I'm thinking that kind of looks like cave paintings or something.
Yeah. See, well, there you go.
No, there's actually a function to it, for sure.
It is.
Now, you've kind of split up the book into a think part of the book, which is the first part, and then the move part, which is kind of like the last, what was it there, 5 chapters even. And the first chapter is called Nutritious Movement and Diseases of Captivity. Now, to somebody that's just getting introduced to this this whole world of health and fitness, nutritious movement might sound like a strange phrase, and so does diseases of captivity, because we're free living humans. So do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Well, yeah, nutritious movement is this idea, like I was saying before, that there is a spectrum of nutrients that you get from movement that are essential, like minerals and vitamins. There would be the equivalent in larger categories like fat, protein, carbohydrates, and then the smaller micronutrients of all the different B vitamins and the K vitamins and the things that we didn't realize, nutritionally speaking, that people needed until there were populations that went without them, and that there were diseases that arose in populations that didn't have the full spectrum of nutrients. So we've learned a lot about nutrition in the last 40 years, based on these populations that have gone without. And so what I'm proposing in Move Your DNA is that that there's a movement equivalent, and it's not exercise that I'm talking about. So most people are probably thinking, okay, I know I need to cross-train, and I'm really talking about every single way that your body moves in your space. So if you look around, you probably have something on your feet, and that is limiting the motion, and you're inside your house probably, if you're on your computer, maybe not, but even if you are looking at something on a device, there's a distance between your eyes and whatever you're looking at, and there's all these little tiny things where you're casted or imprisoned, if you will, by your habitat. So in the same way that zoo animals are in a cage, and they're still animals, and they're still getting kind of what they need, someone's still feeding them, someone has put logs and grass for them to kind of recreate their natural environment, but there's a big discrepancy in a zoo animal between the environment that has been recreated and the actual environment in which the animal dwells. So I talk about this thing called the mechanical environment, and I use orcas which are the killer whales, to explain it, to kind of say, just because an orca is in water, which is its environment, there's different types of water, and the way that you swim through a tank is different than the way that you'd swim through the ocean. And so Move Your DNA is when we took ourselves out of nature, in every sense of the natural world, not just the forest and the ground and the wind and the temperature, but also the motivations and the starvation and the biological motivators and the need to use our body for survival. When we took ourselves out of that, our movement drastically changed. So in the same way that orcas kind of experience these collapsed fins when they just swim in a circle in a tank all day long, we too have these collapsed fins, which are the diseases of captivity, which is what I'm calling them. They're usually referred to as the diseases of affluence. They're ailments that come up in human populations that dwell in non-traditional human environments. And so those are the things that you will probably have. They're also listed under diseases of mechanotransduction, which is this more scientific term. But in the end, we're all in a tank together. So it makes it very hard, since everyone has a collapsed fin. No one's really recognizing that no one has an upright fin, because we've never actually seen a human that didn't have a collapsed fin. So that's what Move Your DNA is in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Trying to reset our kind of captivity clock, I suppose, and trying to get us back to our natural ways of movement. And that's an interesting thing that you kind of distinguish between the difference between exercise and movement. You explicitly say they are not the same thing. So let's go into a little bit more about that.
Well, so exercise, exercise is good and has all these benefits, but as a sedentary culture, meaning that as a captive culture, we live inside many controlled environments, and we just shuttle from one controlled environment to another. Exercise has become our sole understanding of this phenomenon called movement. We think of needing to get our vitamin exercise, right? It's like, Sam, did you move today? And it's like, I haven't made it to the gym yet, or I didn't take a run, or I didn't do yoga class or whatever. So that's how everyone probably right now is processing that term. But there is this thing called movement, which is really everything that you're doing. I mean, the way that your eyes are blinking, and the way that you're moving, and the way that your eyes are looking at the screen, and the pressures against your skin. There's all these micro movements that are happening that shape the behavior of our cells, and there's the movements of you walking around to get what you need in your life, and even more, we don't have a lack of exercise problem, because exercise itself is kind of an artificial thing. It's the equivalent to taking supplements. So if you had a bad diet, you wouldn't necessarily say that you had a poor diet because you weren't getting your supplements. You would have a poor diet because you weren't getting the foods that you needed. So people's physical health is not because you're not getting exercise. Exercise is just this supplement, this high-intensity, short-duration pill that we're taking because we don't eat. So I always think of it like the Willy Wonka super meal in a chew. You're trying to get this roast beef meal to fit into a piece of bubble gum, and that's how we've understood exercise. Only now, when I say it as Willy Wonka bubblegum, it's like, how crazy, why would we need that instead of food? But that's really the equivalent of exercise. Your body needs to be moving all day long. And when I say movement, I don't mean, going out and doing movement. I mean that you would be sitting in lots of different joint configurations. You could be sitting on the floor and not going somewhere, but you sit on your couch almost all of the time, or in your particular chairs. You would never plop on the floor and get a new joint configuration, because in your mind, sitting on the floor and getting a new joint configuration is something for an exercise class where someone's leading you through a stretch for that joint configuration. So it's really the difference of motivation and how big you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I encourage all of our members to actually do some form of just tennis ball rolling, just on glutes and things in front of the telly. So when they are watching TV and things, they're not just kind of, sat on the sofa or the couch just in one position, but they're moving just in front of the TV. That's just one way that I try to get people to transition, which is kind of the beginning of your move part of the book. And obviously transitioning from kind of where a lot of people are very sedentary, and when I say sedentary, I mean they literally sort of almost stay in the same positions all day long, and not, just stretching out their chest when they're sitting down and things like that, literally kind of hunched shoulders and, sort of contracted abs and hip flexors and things like that. So how does somebody kind of go from that regular lifestyle to kind of more of a moving lifestyle?
Well, I mean, just with small, gentle progression. So if you're watching television in the evening, like you said, just watch it differently. Do something different with your body while you're watching it. If you are sitting for the bulk of your workday, set a timer, or there's actually these really great apps now that will shut your computer screen down for you at a preset time. You can say every 30 minutes, I just want you to darken a screen and pop up something that says go walk. And they've shown, like research-wise, that you only have to walk for 3 minutes every 30 minutes at 2 miles an hour. So you're just going for this really slow walk. You could, if you're in an office, deliver something by hand, take a phone call outside while you're walking, just to break up the geometry. Thinking about movement in terms of a series of positions, and if you're in a chair, it's just one repetitious position. Just breaking up that geometry is really enough to break up some of the adaptations that trickle all the way down to the cellular level, especially in the arteries. So if people are concerned with their cardiovascular health, thinking outside cardio and thinking of geometry, the more you can just change your body around, great. And even if you are, okay, I still can't get up from my desk and I can't get up from the television, just sit differently. Just change your head position relative to your shoulders, or change your rib cage position relative to your pelvis. You can start really at any level that you want, whatever you feel like you're able to digest right now. Start small, but just quantify, wow, I really do keep assuming the same position over and over and over again, and just pick a different position. Don't even move yet. Just pick a different position.
Absolutely, because the benefit's almost in the variability of the movement itself, and that's kind of something that you point out in the book, is about standing desks. And standing desks are kind of great, and they're kind of coming almost fashionable, I suppose, aren't they? But I mean, if you were to literally stand there in the same position all day long, you're going to kind of get similar problems to if you need to sit there all day long, just because you're in just one position. The point is that variability is the benefit. Sort of maybe go into a bit more about that and kind of how we can have that variability in an office environment.
Yeah, it's so funny because that is the new, you were just saying how trendy standing workstations are becoming, forgetting that standing workstations used to be the only option because everyone was working in factories, standing literally at the component that they were assembling or moving, and there were a lot of injuries that arose because repetitiveness is the problem. There is no real problem for the human body to assume. I mean, if you want to contract and flex your spine and tuck your pelvis, like, that's not a problematic position per se. It's that you've done it 40,000 times today. That's where the problem comes up. So with standing, it's kind of the same thing. If you're going to stand, you can stand differently. You can actually move parts of you while you're standing. And I wrote a whole supplement to Move Your DNA, which should be out soon, which is called Don't Just Sit There, which is everything in Move Your DNA applied to the 8 hours in the office. Hang a chin-up bar in your office, and even if you take that 2-minute break to get out of your seat and just go casually hang from it, that's enough to change your arterial positions. That when we think in terms of exercise, we think of this hour-long thing that you have to do, that you usually have to take a shower afterwards, and it requires a whole separate outfit from the thing that you're wearing. But when you think in terms of movement, it's the tiniest things, like you're standing at your workstation, look at your feet, change your foot position, back your hips up, let a different part of your skeleton be squished, or if you're sitting in your chair, tilt your pelvis in a way that compresses your spine differently so that you're not engaging in this repetitious load, which is the equivalent of over-consuming a single vitamin. Like, all vitamins are fine, but you can get a disease from over-consuming vitamins in the same way that you can get a disease from under-consuming them.
Absolutely, perfectly put. So kind of, as I said, the benefit is in the variability of all of this. And one thing that you kind of go into as well is the kind of the new wave that's coming through, and that's barefoot running. And that's another important thing to mention, is that you must transition slowly if you do want to go down that line, and even if you do, it might not be right for you. So can you give us your opinion a bit on barefoot walking and running?
Yeah, I think in the book I try to stress that there's a difference between something being natural and then something being what your body is ready for, because you yourself are not really a natural version of yourself. So it's kind of the equivalent, again, to go back to the zoo, to take an animal that's been born and raised in a zoo and then release it back into the wild. It's a natural animal, but it doesn't survive in the wild because its natural muscle, in all sense of the terms, isn't robust. It's not strong enough. It's never been challenged. And so your shape has been influenced by what you have done. And since what you have done, for the most part, is nothing, and certainly not very much with your bare feet under the weight of your body, to put on a barefoot shoe or no shoe and then go load it many, many times on a surface that is not natural. So then the natural argument has to expand more than just within the walls of your skin. There's a natural running and walking pattern, and none of it would happen on vitamin flat and level and covered in asphalt and cement. So there's many, many layers to the natural argument. So I think helping people understand the biomechanics is best, and that you just slowly start preparing your body, trying to do some corrective exercises that I've listed to mobilize the joints and increase the density of the bones, the function of the nerves, and improve the hydration and the bulk of the muscular tissue that's supposed to be participating. And then also get rid of some of your chair baggage, because your feet are really affected by the chair baggage that lives in your hips and your psoas muscles. So the feet are not only from the ankles down, the height of your arch and the strength of your gait has a lot to do with the strength and mobility of your hips. And so if you just kind of approach yourself as an onion and try not to do any one thing all the way, but many little things, just a little bit of the way, will move your body closer to this natural reflexive version of yourself that we're after.
Absolutely. And one thing that you have a whole chapter on walking, and for a lot of people, they'll think that walking, it's just putting one foot in front of the other.
Sure.
But there are some serious specifics there. It's a relatively complex movement.
Yeah, it might be one of the most complex things that we do. And yet everyone thinks it's like, well, I've been walking since I was 1 year old, so I've been doing it this whole entire time. And, well, again, in the book, it's like, yes, but consider the way that you've been doing it. The way that you've done it is in shoes, on flat. You probably learned how to walk while wearing a diaper, which kind of pushed your legs apart. You've been sitting since you were 4 or 5 throughout the bulk of the day, and that all of these things have given you a gait pattern, but it is not your natural gait pattern. It's not one that uses the full spectrum of your muscles. It's not the most nutritious version of the way that you could be walking. And in many cases, it's often described as falling, and that's what a lot of people are doing, is this kind of controlled, I'll say controlled, it's really an out of control falling that they're doing. And then now we can see the relationship between the degree of that kind of step-by-step collapse and knee osteoarthritis and bone density issues, and that you can really see that the way you load yourself when you're walking really does bring about the physical structure that you now have. So if you don't like that structure, you don't want to just keep going out and loading a bunch of miles on it. You want to refine it, make it a little bit more nutritious, and then start getting back out of your cage, so to speak.
Absolutely, and kind of that gradual transitioning is so important. And if you can, highly recommend having somebody to kind of guide you through that as well. You can kind of use your blog almost as a bit of a as a guiding light, as well as the book as well. But you do have a company called Restorative Exercise, Aligned and Well, sorry, which people can check out at restorative exercise.com.
Yeah, restorativexercise.com. That's the institute. So that's where people come and actually take their training with us. And we have people all over the world. So you can find someone in your country, luckily, hopefully in your town. If not, they do Skype and stuff. But having someone, once you've read a bunch of the work and go, okay, I think I have a good sense of it, and I've been doing some of the primer stuff. If you want even more instruction, that there's plenty of people out there that we have to help you make the transition.
Absolutely, and again, people can check that out at restorativexercise.com, and I really do recommend everybody getting the book, Move Your DNA, via Amazon, and if you're in the UK, you can get that as well as supporting the show at smashthefat.com/DNA UK, and if you're in the US, you can get it via Amazon and help support the show at smashthefat.com/DNA US. And then finally, I really recommend, because that's what I did, listening to the audio book, because you get a little bit extra with that. You get outtakes from yourself, Katy, as well as little things that you add on to the end of sentences that aren't quite in the book. So maybe they were kind of afterthoughts, and people can grab that for free, even if you haven't signed up to Audible already, by going to smashthefat.com/Audible, and then you can sign up for a 30-day free trial there, and then search for Move Your DNA. Yeah, were there any other wise words that you'd like to leave us with, Katy?
I think the wisest word is just move. Yeah. And that's it. That's all I got.
That's spot on, Katy. Exactly what I wanted. And there's only one more thing to do before you go, and that's to hear a smash it out to the camera from Katy Bowman. So on 3, I'd like you to shout "smash it out" to the camera. So 1, 2, 3.
Smash it out!
That's what I'm talking about. And again, people can check out the book Move Your DNA at smashthefat.com/DNA UK or DNA US, and check out Katy's blog, katysays.com, as well. And yeah, again, thank you again for your time today, Katy. Very much appreciated. And I really recommend everybody going to check out the book and then start moving your DNA.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate you having me.
No problem at all. All right, well, take it easy, Katy, and yeah, we'll maybe get you back on the show to talk about that supplementation book as well.
Sure.
Absolutely fantastic. All right, take care, Katy. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.